Hello. 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 Uh, Let me check. Oh. Okay. 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 Thank you, guys. It's a new week. It's a new week. Okay, vocabulary review. Put on airs. Put on airs. Don't be deceived. Deceived. Don't be deceived. Strap off. Citizenship. 文慢 scum. Scum. To a siren call. Scum. Scum. Okay. Both groups within a cabal were handsomely rewarded for their efforts. The political scientists have been seeking about 500,000 to finance finance the current war. The bank probably gave them more than twice what they originally sought. The monetary science started with a pledged capital investment of 1,200,000. Textbooks tell us that this was lent to the government at 8% interest, but what is usually omitted is the fact that at the time the loan was made, only 720,000 had been invested, which means the bank loaned 66% more than it had on hand. Furthermore, the bank was given the privilege of creating at least an equal amount of money in the form of loans to the public. So, after lending their capital to the government, they still had it available to loan out a second time. An honest loan of theirs at it would have yielded, but with the new secret science, they were able to earn 8% on 1.2 million given to the government, plus an estimated 9% on loaning to the public. Oh, that adds up to, oh my god, more than 22 on their investments. The real point, however, is that under this circumstance, circumstance, it is meaningless to talk about a rate of interest. When money is created out of nothing, the true interest rate is not annual or even. It's infinity. In this first official act of the world's first central bank can be seen the grand pretense that has characterized all those which have followed. The bank pretended to make a loan, but What it really did was to manufacture the money for government's use. If the government had done this directly, the fiat nature of the currency would be immediately recognized, and it probably would not have been accepted at full face value in payment for the expense of work by creating money through the banking system. However, the process became mystified to the general public. The newly created bills and notes were distinguishable from those previously backed by coin, and the public was none the wiser. The reality of central banks, therefore, and we must not forget that the Federal Reserve is such a creature, is that under the guise of purchasing government bonds, they act as hidden money machine which can be activated anytime the politicians want. This is godsend to the political scientists who no longer must depend on taxes or the good credit of their treasury to raise money. It is even easier than printing, and because the process is not understood by the public, it is politically safe. The monetary science, of course, are amplified paid for this service to preserve the pretense of banking, to preserve the pretense of banking. It is said they collect interest, but this is misnomer. This is misnomer. They didn't lend money; they created it. Their compensation, therefore, should be called what is a professional fee or a commission or royalty or kickback, depending on your perspective, but no interest. From inflation to bank runs, the new money created by the Bank of England splashed through the economy like rain in April. The country banks outside London area were authorized to create money on their own, but they had to hold a certain percentage of either coin or Bank of England certificates in reserve. Consequently, when these plentiful banknotes landed in their hands, they quickly put them into the vaults and then issued their own certificates in even greater amounts. As a result to this pyramid, 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 pyramid effect. Prices rose 100% in just 2 years. Then the the inevitable happened. There was a run on the bank, and the Bank of England could not produce the coin. When banks could not honor their contract to deliver coin in return for their receipts, they are in fact bankrupt. They should be allowed to go out of business and liquidate their assets to satisfy their creditors, just like any other business. This, in fact, is what always had happened to banks which loan out their deposits and create fractional money. Had this practice been allowed to continue, The little doubt that people eventually would have understood that they simply do not want to do business with those kinds of banks. Through the painful but highly effective process of trial and error, mankind would have learned to distinguish, 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 distinguish real money from false gold, and the world would be a lot better because of it today. That, of course, was not allowed to happen. The cabal, the cabal is a partnership, and each of the three groups is committed to protect each other, not out of loyalty, but out of mutual self-interest. They know that if one fails, so does the other. It is not surprising therefore that when there was a wrong on the Bank of England, Parliament intervened in May of 1696, just 2 years after the bank was formed. A law was passed authorizing it to suspend payments in specie 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 by force of law. The bank was now in exempted from having to honor its contracts to return the gold. 我天 Just 2 years after the bank was formed, a law was passed authorizing it to suspend payment in specie. By force of law, the bank was now exempted from having to ex- accept exempt 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 honor its contract honor its contract exempted from by force of law species. The pattern of protection was set. This, uh, this was a fateful event in the history of money because the precedent has been followed ever since. In Europe and America, the banks have always opened with the assumption that their partners in government will come to their aid when they get into trouble. Politicians may speak about protecting the public, but the underlying reality is that the government needs a fiat money produced by the banks. The banks, therefore, at least the big ones, must not be allowed to fail. Only with government only a cartel with government protection can enjoy such solution from the working of a free market. It's commonly observed in modern times that the criminals often are treated lightly when they rob their neighbor. But if they steal from the government or a bank, the penalties are harsh. This is merely another manifestation of the couple's partnership. In the eyes of governments, banks are special, and has been that way even from the beginning of their neighborhoods. For example, Gambres tell us in when Lord George Gordon is mob through London in protest against the counterattacks. The bank was a principal target designed with the establishment for so long as the country distributed of the land were being 天哪，看不懂。Booms and busts now guaranteed. Once the Bank of England had been legally protected from, like, consequence of converting debt into money, the British economy was doomed to a nauseating rollover coaster ride of inflation, booms and busts. The natural and immediate result was the granting of massive loans for just about any wild scheme imaginable. Why not? The money cost nothing to make, and the potential profits could be enormous. So the Bank of England and the country bank, which pyramided their own money supply on top of the bank's supply, pumped a steady stream of new money into economy. Great stock companies were formed and financed by this money. One was for the purpose of draining the Red Sea to recover the gold supply, the gold supposedly lost by Egyptians when pursuing the Israelis, were siphoned into vague and fruitless business in South America and Mexico. The result of this flood of new money, how many times must history repeat it, was even more inflation. In 1810, the House of Commons created a special committee called the Select Committee on the High Price of Gold Bullion. to explore the problem and to find a solution. The verdict handed down in the final report was a mode of clarity. Prices were not going up, and said the value of the currency was going down, and that was due to the fact that it was being created at a faster rate than the creation of goods to be purchased with it. The solution, the committee recommended that the notes of the Bank of England be made fully convertible into gold coin, thus putting a brake on the supply of money that could be created in defense of the gold standard. One of the most outspoken proponents of a true gold standard was a Jewish London stockbroker by the name of David Ricardo argued that an ideal currency should be absolutely invariable in value. He conceded that precious metal were not perfect in this regard because they need to shift in purchasing power to a small degree. Then he said, they are, however, the best with which we are acquainted. acquainted. Almost everyone in government agreed with Richard's assessment, but as is often the case, theoretical truth was fighting a losing battle against practical necessity. Man's opinions on the best form of money were one thing, the war with Napoleon was another, and it demanded a constant inflow of funding. England continued to use the central bank mechanism to extract that revenue from the populace. Depression and reform. By 1815, prices had doubled again and then fell sharply. A Corn Act was passed that year to protect local growers from lower-priced imports. Then, when corn and wheat prices began to climb once more in spite of the fact that wages and other prices were falling, there was widespread discontent and rebellion. By 1816, notes Roy Jasper, England was in deep depression. There was stagnable industry and trade generally. The air and the coal industries were paralyzed. Riots occurred spasmodically from May through December. Riot feared Right. In 1921, after the war had ended and there was no longer a need to fund military companies, the political pressure for a gold standard became too strong to resist. And the Bank of England returned to a convertibility of its notes into gold coin. The basic central bank mechanism was not dismantled. However, it was merely limited by a new formula regarding the allowed fraction of reserves. The bank continued to create money out of nothing for the purpose of lending, and within a year, the follower of a new business boom unfolded. Then, in November of 1825, the flower matured into its predestined destined fruit. The crisis began with the collapse of Sir Peter Cohn and Company and was soon followed by the failure of 63 other banks. Fortunes were wiped out and the economy plunged back into depression. When a similar crisis with still more bank failures struck again in Palmer's attempt to come to grips with the problem. After 5 more years of analysis and debate, Sir Robert Peel succeeded in passing a Banking Reform Act that squarely faced the cause of England's booms and busts: an elastic money supply. What Peel's Bank Act of attempt to do was to limit the amount of money the banks could create to roughly the same as it would be if their banknotes were backed by gold or silver. It was a good try, but it ultimately failed because it fell short on 3 counts. It was political compromise, and was not strict enough, allowing the banks to still create lending money out of nothing to extend out, in other words, a frac amount thought to be safe at the time. 2. The limitation applied only to paper currency issued by the bank. It did not apply to checkbook money, and that was then become the preferred form of exchange. Consequently, the so-called reform did not even apply to the area where the greatest amount of abuse was taking place. And 3. The basic concept was allowed to remain unchallenged that man, in this infinite political wisdom, can determine, determine, determine what the money supply should be more effectively than an unmanaged system of gold or silver responding to the law of supply and demand. The roller coaster continues. La la la. 但最初声音3个月 it fell short. It was a good try, but it ultimately failed because it fell short. on three counts. One, clear compromise and censorship, allowing the banks to still create lending money out of nothing to extend of. Two, the limitation applied only to paper currency issued by the bank. It didn't apply to checkbook money, and that was then becoming the preferred form of exchange. Consequently, the so-called reform didn't even apply to the area where the greatest amount of abuse was taking place. Didn't even apply to the area where the greatest amount of abuse was taking place. The basic concept was allowed to remain unchallenged that man. Dealing with the money supply should be more effective than the unmanaged system of governance to the law of supply and demand.依旧认为政府比金本位更适合调控货币金 fractional amount, checkbook money, unmanaged system, law of supply, the roller coaster continues. Within 3 years of the reform, England faced another crisis with still more bank failures and more losses to depositors. But when the Bank of England tottered on the edge of insolvency, once again the government intervened. In 1847, the bank was exempted from the legal reserve requirements of the P Act, such as rock-steady dependability of man-made limits to the money supply. George Closer continues the story. 10 years later, in 1857, another crisis occurred due to the excessive and unwise lending as a result of over-optimism regarding foreign trade prospects. The bank found itself in the same position as, and similar measures were taken. On this occasion, the bank was forced to use the authority to increase its fiduciary issued beyond the limit imposed by the Bank Charter Act. Again, in 1866, the growth of banking without sufficient attention to liquidity and the use of bank credit to support a speculative craze prepared the way for a crash, which was finally precipitated by the failure of the famous House of Overland Grand and Count. The act was once more suspended. Speculative. The Bank of England once again faced crash again the result of widespread and excessive speculation in foreign securities, particularly America and Argentina. This time, it was the failure of Baring Brothers that precipitated the crash. The mechanism spread to other countries. It is an incredible fact of history that, in spite of the general and recurring failures of the Bank of England during these years, the central bank mechanism was so attractive to political and monetary science that it became the model of all Europe. The Bank of Prussia became the richest bank. Napoleon established the the funds. A few decades later, the concept became the venerated venerated model for the Federal Reserve System. Who cares if the scheme is destructive? Here's the perfect tool for paying unlimited funding for politicians and endless profits for bankers. And best of all, the little people who pay the bills for both groups has practically no idea what is being done to them. Summary: the business of banking began in Europe in the 14th century. Its function was to evaluate exchange and safeguard people's coin. In the beginning, there were notable examples of totally honest banks which operated with remarkable efficiency, considering the vast variety of coinage they handled. Efficiency. They also issued paper receipts, which were so dependable they freely calculated as money and cheated no one in the process. But there was a great demand for more money and more loans, and the temptation soon caused the bankers to seek easier paths. They began lending out pieces of paper that they were receipts, but which in fact were counterfeit. The public could not tell one from the other and accept both of them as money. From that point forward, the receipts in circulation exceeded the gold held in reserve, and the age of fractional reserve banking had dawned. This led immediately to what would become an almost unbroken record from then to the present, a record of inflation, booms and busts, suspension of payments, bank failures, repudiation of currencies, and recurring symptoms of economic chaos. The Bank of England was formed in to institutionalize fractional reserve banking. As the world's first central bank, it introduces the concept of partnership between bankers and politicians. The politicians who receive spend money created out of nothing by bankers without having to raise taxes. In return, the bankers would receive a commission on the transportation, deceptively called interest, which would continue in perpetuity, since it all seemed to be wrapped up in the mysterious riches of banking, which the common man was not expected to understand. There was practically no opposition to the scheme. The arrangement proved so profitable to the participants that it soon spread to many other countries in Europe and eventually to the United States. Okay, chapter 10, The Mandrake Machinism. OK，194、185。The method by which the Federal Reserve created money out of nothing, the concept of usury as the payment of interest on pretended loans, the true cause of the hidden tax called inflation, the way in which the Fed creates boom-bust circles. Oh, Mandrake. Okay, I think that's all for today. See you tomorrow. See you. Bye bye. See you.